We've all heard of Dracula, and I'm sure each of you knows well that the author of the book, Bram Stoker, was inspired by a real prince born in Transylvania in 1431. You'll be surprised to learn the writer never set foot in that region. So how was he able to create the world's most famous vampire, describing his castle and his story so well? All right. He did it through exhaustive research of original documents, from which he only took a part, purposely leaving the most twisted and macabre things out of the book. Why? Because it was too dark to be told at that time, but yes. I accessed an investigation. I read some documents where the name Son of the Dragon appears over and over again. Dracula. And here, exclusively and for the first time, I'm bringing you the complete and uncensored story about this prince named Vlad. Postscript, I'm going to reveal to you why his extreme cruelty made him famous, and you'll learn that, for some, he was a ruthless, bloodthirsty man, and for others, a national hero whom everyone is afraid to name. Stay with me, and I'll reveal his origins, his bloody methods of torture, and above all, the secret stories that no one has ever dared to mention. Why? I am the Documentalista, and this is Vlad T-Nomsa P as 4 million subscribers special. From the shadows to the light. It's about mystery and devotion. Theme. And I discovered it in the midst of truth. Parallel worlds exist. And through my mistakes, I learned humility, making a pact with the heavens. I am the Documentalist. First, in just a minute, know that Vlad III was born in 1431 inside Transylvania's walls. Son of Vlad II Dracula, Prince of Wallachia. Attention! Being a noble in that region was not a privilege, not at all. On the contrary. Since Vlad III learned to walk, they put a sword in his hand and subjected him to a secret, ruthless, and rigorous training. Because every heir to the crown had to be the strongest in combat, to the point that he cut through the ambush, slicing legs, arms, and heads, and Vlad. He stood out so much among his brothers that at the age of 9 his father told him, I have information. They have bought off a group of our own guards and plan to betray us and kill us. I told this same thing to your 2 brothers, and they didn't know how to answer the question I'm now asking you. Tell me, my son, if you were in my place, what would you do to uncover the traitors before it's too late? And little Vlad answered without hesitation. Tell the guards that I have died of fever, and put me in my room in an open coffin with my sword in my hands, as is usually done when the body of a noble is prepared for the funeral. The loyal guards will believe you without needing to see. But the traitors will suspect that you are deceiving them and will want to see for themselves. Give me a group of 10 women from the kitchen and have them cry around me. Leave the rest in my hands, and in the morning, you'll know who has betrayed you. Vlad's father was so satisfied and surprised that he did just that. And indeed, 4 of his guards entered in the middle of the night and saw the group of women crying inconsolably. They approached the little one's coffin to make sure and... All right. Imagine their terrified faces when the boy suddenly sat up and drove his sword through one of their necks. He gave the order to the women to stab the rest with kitchen knives they had hidden under their robes. The 4 heads were displayed at the castle gates the next morning as a clear warning. No one. No one gets away with a betrayal. But everything got worse quickly. It turns out that Wallachia was right in the middle of two superpowers that were in conflict. The mighty Kingdom of Hungary on one side, the fearsome Ottoman Empire on the other, and the Ottomans. The bloodthirsty Ottomans. They finally established an alliance with little Vlad's father to fight together against the Hungarians. But the damned Ottomans, they had a ruthless practice to make sure they wouldn't be betrayed. One that consisted of nothing more and nothing less than taking the children of their allies under the excuse of raising and educating them in the tactics of war. But, obviously, if the noblemen broke the pact, they killed the children without hesitation or delay. And so on. At the age of 11, Vlad and his brother Ratu were sent as hostages to the Ottoman Empire to guarantee their father's loyalty to Sultan Murad II. There, in a foreign land where Turkey is today, Vlad received further military training and learned war tactics that he would later employ with precision. In the Ottoman court, while other children prayed for gentler lessons, Vlad absorbed the discipline, cruelty, and brutality of an empire that knew no compassion and, moreover, had a secret weapon. A weapon that explained why they became so powerful in battle. The Ottomans had among their ranks an indestructible creature called Vishlar Kabir, which in their language means big teeth. A terrible vampire that they hid very well in the castle's underground. But pay attention. Let's not get confused. Little Vlad was there for years, but he hated them, each and every one of those Ottomans, and they understood that he could never fight against them as long as they had that child under their control. So he planned in secret to kill her, because he knew that one day he himself would be crowned Prince of Wallachia, and if nothing changed when he had his own children, the Ottomans would come for them too. It wasn't only about freedom or patriotism, but also religion, because Vlad, he was a Christian. Yes, he prayed to Jesus, to the Virgin, to the saints, according to the Orthodox rite, while the Ottomans were Muslims, followers of Islam. When he turned 16, the Wallachian understood that he was ready. And on a moonless night, he dressed in black and, from memory without using lamps, walked in complete darkness until he found the secret corridor that led underground. He found two gods asleep. He ran one through with his sword and cut off both legs of the other. But he left him alive just long enough to confess where the vampire was and how they managed to control him in battle. The man pleaded for mercy and said, "Only the Sultan and his sorcerers can control the Dishlar Kavir, because they are the only ones who know its true name, and with the name. Before each battle, they create a Tawit, a protective amulet that makes Big Teeth fight our enemies and keeps it from rebelling against us. I won't tell you how to get in because..." Then Vlad cut off one of his arms too and said, "With the hand you have left, point to where the entrance is and I'll give you a quick death. Or do you prefer that I keep cutting?" The guard indicated that it was under the carpet, and the thug decapitated him without a second thought. He was shocked when he entered the dungeon. First, because that thing was chained with thick silver links, surrounded by hundreds of sharp wooden stakes, and thousands of garlic heads inscribed with ancient symbols. And second, he was shocked because Big Teeth, the powerful vampire locked up under so many security measures, was actually a beautiful woman with light-colored eyes and perfect skin, who smiled at him as soon as she saw him and said hurriedly, "You're not from around here, are you? If you free me, I promise not to attack you. I've been a prisoner of these men's spell for 90 years. They forced me to fight their battles, to go behind enemy lines, and to destroy seats with my own hands, making them flee or surrender. Set me free. I give you my word." Vlad answered him, "I'm going to risk getting you out of here, but only if you teach me the secret of your power." And she replied, "That's easy. Fear is power. You don't even have to be like me for that. Take your enemy's worst nightmares and make them real. Then you'll have so much power that you'll be remembered even 1,000 years after you're gone." Vlad pushed away the heads of garlic, struck the thick chains with his sword until he cut them, and set the vampire woman free. It wouldn't be the last time he saw her. That same year, after the death of his father and the murder of his older brother, Vlad returned to Wallachia determined to claim the throne. It wasn't easy. The Hungarians had put his cousin on the throne, and he had to invade Wallachia a couple of times before he achieved his goal. He consolidated his power in 1456 and began using what he learned during captivity. His rule's motto was absolute discipline, punishing any transgression with amputation or horrific death. Corruption, theft, and betrayal were often punishable by impalement. And what is impalement? The worst nightmare of any human being. His machine was simple. A thick, long, and pointed wooden stake was inserted into the lower area of the condemned, and then they would set him upright. Gravity did the rest. And because of the weight of the poor wretch himself, the wood would drive deeper and deeper into his body until it came out through a shoulder, the chest, or the mouth. The idea was to inflict prolonged pain and ensure death in a slow and ruthless way, while the body remained upright, exposed as a warning to others. If you look for this type of execution, you'll find historical records documenting this practice, which was especially used in Wallachia and Transylvania during the 15th century associated with Vlad, so much so that his enemies began to call him Zebish. What does it mean? Impaler. Terror also became his weapon against the boyars, the local nobility who dared to challenge him. He called them to his castle, judged them, and sentenced them to death by impalement. Some accounts say that thousands were impaled in endless rows, forming forests of bodies that rose above the land of Wallachia. The horror that Vlad provoked was not gratuitous. He sought to consolidate power and sow obedience. His cruelty became legendary, and his name began to be spoken with fear, even beyond the borders of his kingdom. And when he saw that this reputation, just as Big Teeth had said, it gave him power over his enemies, he began his confrontation against the Ottoman Empire, and that took the violence to another level. In 1462, when Sultan Mehmed II invaded Wallachia with his much larger and better armed army, Vlad organized night raids against the enemy camps that were closest. The order was simple: surprise them in the darkness, demonstrate superior strength and discipline, and force their immediate surrender. Imagine waking to your comrade's screams and seeing the Impaler's soldiers before you. They wear armor made of metal and hardened leather, curved swords and banners with a red dragon and the cross of Christ on their chests. They are violent and methodical. If they see you, they come after you, without stopping, without hesitation. Then you prepare for battle alongside your companions, lined up as you were taught. But the problem is that your enemy knows every tactic and strategy of the Ottomans. That's when the Wallachian cavalry mercilessly tramples them from the sides, with heavy riders carrying lances, maces, and giant swords at full speed on massive horses. Your companions scatter in terror, and that's when you see him in the distance. Prince Platacero himself is fighting. His armor is dark red, and the horned helmet makes him look like a demon. Everyone around him seems to give up. They've lost, they were caught off guard, and there's nothing left to do. So they lower their weapons and beg for mercy. Grave mistake. A carriage is approaching. Then another and another. They all carry long, thick, pointed logs. Thousands of them. At dawn, the Ottoman divisions arrive at the camp, but they don't find it. They walk through the forest, immersed in the fog. There is confusion. There shouldn't be any forest there. It's not on the maps. And then the sun dissipates the fog, and they realize. Sultan Mehmed II himself describes it in a message to his commanders that it said the following: "We advanced through what we thought was a normal forest. The fog lifted, revealing thousands of men impaled on stakes. There were some of our own. An entire advance camp, plus women, elders, and children who we don't know where they came from. Maybe thieves or criminals from their own people. Bodies pierced through, eyes open, blood and flesh frozen. Some were still writhing. Prince Vlad is not a man, he's a demon who has truly earned the name of the Impaler. Every step our troops take will be watched, every mistake punished. Prepare yourselves. Fortify positions, secure weapons, and control the men's fear. But no. You who? We are not facing an army. We are facing a monster. That's right. Vlad Tepes' soldiers impaled prisoners of war and left them in plain sight, creating what chroniclers called the Night of the Forest of the Impaled. The Ottoman troops were terrified, and the horror of the scene spread throughout Europe. Vlad sought to instill absolute terror in his enemies, and he succeeded. Internal betrayals and broken alliances eventually led to his capture. He was imprisoned by Hungarian forces for years, and rumors about his ferocity and cruelty grew while he remained a prisoner. After his release, he briefly reclaimed the throne in 1476, continuing his crusade against invaders and traitors. But that last stage was short-lived. Ambushed in a battle, the official story says he was killed by beheading, and his head was sent to the Sultan as a trophy. One last irony in his life marked by blood. But ha 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 ha. That story is very different from the studies by Bram Stoker that gave rise to the book. You'll see. There are documents that state that Pope Sixtus IV knew very well who Vlad III was and was aware of his actions. Although the information reached Rome indirectly, through ambassadors, Hungarian nobles, and European chroniclers, Vlad III was considered in Rome to be a fierce ruler who defended Wallachia from the Ottomans. And his technique of impalement was so infamous that it quickly became a subject of diplomatic reports and letters at the papal court. They all spoke with the same urgency. The popularity of Vlad as a defender of Christianity against the Ottoman advance was so great that, if the church had no way to control him directly, Christianity would be reduced to a representation of moral horror, cruelty, and revenge. And so they decided to set a trap for him. The Pope's order was clear and direct. Establish negotiations with the Ottomans and capture the Impaler. If he resists, kill him. Who was the order for? I'll tell you. At that time, there was a group of hunters in the region sent by the Vatican to kill a creature of the night that was terrorizing the Catholic population of Sibiu in Transylvania. They had already identified it. It was none other than Big Teeth. the vampire woman whom Vlad had helped escape many years before. However, they couldn't find her lair. But Big Teeth was watching them closely at night, and when he saw that the Pope's hunters gave up their search and set off toward the mountain road that separated Sibiu from the capital of the Principality of Wallachia, he immediately understood that there was something worse than her there. He knew without a doubt that they were after Vlad Tepes. Vampires move quickly in the shadows, and she arrived one night before the hunters. The Impaler drew his sword when he saw her. It was only natural. He found her in his room, staring at his wife, Justina Silagui, cousin of King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary. Because, yes, when they let him out of prison, it was because both had the Ottomans as their main enemy, and the Hungarians used better methods to ensure the loyalty of their allies. They built alliances through marriages instead of kidnapping children. But Vlad had fallen deeply in love with her, and they had 2 children. So you can imagine that seeing the vampire woman near his beloved didn't please him at all. However, Vientes Grandes reassured him by saying, "I bring important news. The hunters from the powerful Vatican are on their way. You must run away. Facing them is not a good idea. At least not if you want to survive. They don't use ordinary weapons but ancient relics. I can't stand against them. Even so, I want to return the kindness you've shown me by setting me free. So I'm willing to turn you into one of the others. A vampire. We can live together forever. Let's get out of here. From these pointless battles." Vlad. He accepted immediately, and she bit him violently and gave him her blood to drink. Why did he accept such a thing? Did he want to go with her? Of course not. But he wanted to be immortal, and use the new powers to protect Valak and his family. When he awoke to life as a vampire, he dismissed Big Teeth with a warning. "If I see you near my wife again, I'm going to rip your head off with my own hands." The vampire woman pleaded for him to run away with her, but it was in vain. She jumped out the window. She fell past the well and vanished into the night. How do we know all this? Because Vlad's wife, Justina Silagui, she wasn't asleep. But she pretended to be because she was afraid of the intruder and heard absolutely everything. And just as I'm telling you, she recounted it in a letter to her cousin, the King of Hungary, one that... She ends by saying, "When I dared to tell him that I really wasn't asleep, I got out of bed and saw that my beloved husband had his eyes glowing red. He fought a burning thirst for human blood inside him. He just kept repeating like a madman, 'I can never be close to you again. Not with this thirst. Stay away from me. Don't come near me or I might hurt you.' Minutes later, he jumped out the window. He survived the fall unharmed. The Pope's hunters arrived shortly after. They promised me they wouldn't kill him if I told them where he had gone. And I did. I told them he left heading toward Ottoman territory. 2 weeks went by and they returned in a carriage carrying a closed coffin. Vlad was inside. It was his voice that was screaming from inside. He was begging to be let out. The hunters from Rome and the Ottomans set a trap for him. They say that 300 men died trying to capture him. We're unprotected here. They've taken him to the Vatican, but he's alive. Or at least, he's not completely dead. I'm asking you urgently, dear cousin. Welcome my children and me into your kingdom. Today, Vlad Tătai for Romania is a hero who defended independence against the Ottomans. For Europe, the Impaler, a symbol of absolute cruelty. For the Vatican, it's just another immortal prisoner housed in the third basement jail. And for all of us, always, always, will it be? Dracula. I am the documentalist. And this was Vlad Tepes, the Impaler. 4 million subscribers special.